People spend their whole lives worrying about losing money, losing health, losing youth. And fair enough, those are real things. But I want to talk tonight about something almost nobody warns you about. Losing time while you are still alive, wasting the years you've got left on things that stopped deserving your energy a long time ago. I'm 74 years old. And the older I get, the more I notice a certain kind of older person and a certain other kind. Same age, same wrinkles, same gray hair, same tired knees, completely different spirit. One of them settled into something lighter as the years went by. The other one got heavier inside. And after watching neighbors, old friends, my own brother go through it, I started seeing the habits that do it. The quiet little drains that steal what's left of a man's peace without him ever quite noticing they're doing it. Tonight, I want to name 5 of them. The way an old man talks when he's got nothing left to prove and no reason to pretend anymore. The first one is carrying old resentment. Now, I know that sounds like something a preacher says. Bear with me. When I was younger, a man I'd been in business with betrayed me, cost me money, embarrassed me publicly, and for years I replayed it. I'd be driving down the road alone, going nowhere in particular, and suddenly I was arguing with him again in my own head, saying what I should have said, doing what I should have done, and this went on for years. I'm embarrassed to tell you how many. The man had long since moved on, had a whole life I knew nothing about. But I was still in that argument like it was a Tuesday morning meeting. I couldn't leave. The strange thing about resentment is that it starts feeling like strength, like you're refusing to let someone off the hook, like staying angry is the honorable thing to do. But what I eventually figured out, too late and the hard way, is that nobody's on any hook. The other man felt nothing. I was the one carrying him around in my chest every day. I've seen older men build their whole personality around one betrayal, one bad divorce, one ungrateful child, one brother who got the inheritance they deserved. Every conversation circles back to it. The voice tightens when they get there. The face changes. They go back in time somehow. You can watch it happen. They become almost young again in the wrong direction, frozen in the year the wound happened while the actual present slips by unnoticed. And then, one morning a few years back, I had to reckon with myself about it. Up before sunrise, cup of coffee in my hand, birds starting outside. My grandkids were asleep in the other room. A perfectly good morning, and I realized I was spending it with old anger instead of with any of that. Physically sitting in a good life and emotionally living in chapters that had already ended. Forgiving someone doesn't mean what they did was all right. Some things weren't all right, but it means deciding that your peace matters more than continuing the argument inside your own head. That's what it took me too long to understand. The coffee gets cold either way. Might as well drink it. The second one is worrying about everything you cannot control. And older people get very good at this. We worry about our kids even when they're pushing 50 themselves. We worry about the economy, the country, the weather, the news. Some people wake up and the first thing they do before their feet even touch the floor is invite anxiety into the room. I did it too. After I retired, I had more free time than I'd had in 40 years, and somehow that free time became empty space for worry to grow in. I'd watch the news for hours, telling myself I was staying informed. By nighttime, I was run out, and nothing in my actual life had changed. The mind loves the illusion of control. Worrying feels like doing something, like being responsible, like staying sharp. But most worrying changes nothing except how badly you sleep. I had a good friend who spent the last 10 years of his life obsessing over every possible disaster. Watched the stock market every hour, stayed up past midnight following political arguments, panicked over his grown son's choices. And one afternoon he looked at me and said, "I haven't felt calm in years." Just like that, flat, like he was reading off a grocery list. That sentence stayed with me because he wasn't complaining exactly. He'd just forgotten what calm felt like. Constant tension had become so familiar he couldn't separate it from who he was. Caring about people is good. Caring about the world is good. but there's a gap between carrying and destroying your own peace over things that were never in your hands to begin with. These days, when anxiety starts rising, I ask myself one question: can I do something meaningful about this today? Sometimes the answer is yes. Call someone, take a walk, help a neighbor, say the thing I've been putting off. Those matter. But if the answer is no, I try not to let my mind set up camp in that place for the whole afternoon. Old age shouldn't feel like living inside a storm. There's a steadiness available to us if we stop gripping so hard. I've sat beside elderly men who hardly say a word, and just being near them feels like stepping out of the wind. They stopped fighting what they couldn't move. That's not weakness. That's the real thing. The third one is the desperate need to still feel important all the time. Nobody talks about this one openly, but I'm going to, because I lived it. When you're younger, people need you constantly. Your job needs you, your kids need you, your opinion matters in every room. Then retirement comes, the kids are grown, the world keeps moving without checking with you first, and suddenly you're no longer at the center of things the way you were. I remember a family dinner a few years into retirement. My grown children were making decisions without asking my opinion, just living their lives the way they should. And something ugly rose up in me. Irritation, hurt, pride, maybe mostly pride. I wanted to interrupt, wanted to remind everybody who used to carry this whole family on his back. I stayed quiet that time, barely. And later that night I sat with what I felt, and I had to be honest with myself about it. I didn't want to help them with anything. I wanted to feel significant again. Those are two very different things, and a lot of older people suffer because they can't tell them apart. So they keep proving themselves, correcting people who didn't ask, starting arguments just to feel visible, giving advice nobody wanted because being the one with the answer makes them feel like they still matter. And the people around them feel it, even when they can't name it. The older men I most admire now are the ones who stop needing the room's attention to feel all right about themselves. There's a kind of man who can sit quietly at a full table without demanding anything, and you feel his weight in the best way. He doesn't compete for the floor. He doesn't correct anybody's stories. He laughs when something's funny and says nothing when nothing needs saying. That takes more work than most people realize. It took me years. Being respected by others comes and goes. Some people will notice what you sacrificed. Many won't. The ones who keep needing recognition make everyone around them tired, and they're tired themselves. Self-respect is the only version that actually holds. And one of the real freedoms of getting old, if you take it, is that you can stop proving yourself entirely. I can't explain how quiet life gets when you put that down. Good quiet. The kind you can breathe in. The fourth one is postponing peace because you think there's more time later. I've heard it my whole life from people my own age. Once things settle down, I'll relax. Next year I'll slow down. When life gets less busy, I'll start enjoying myself. And then 20 years go by. The grandkids grow up. The body starts costing more to run. Friends start disappearing. And the peace they kept postponing never came, because life doesn't settle the way we imagine it will. There's always another thing waiting, another responsibility, another reason to defer. I met a man at a doctor's office a few years back. Solid man, clearly had worked hard his whole life. We got to talking the way you do in waiting rooms, and he told me something I've never forgotten. He said, "I spent my whole life preparing to live peacefully later." And the sadness inside that sentence was something you could hear, not just understand. He'd worked endlessly, sacrificed endlessly, delayed rest endlessly, and he was sitting there in a paper gown at 70-something, and the peaceful life was still somewhere up ahead, still not quite arrived yet. I recognized myself in him more than I wanted to admit. A lot of older people are physically retired but mentally still postponing their own lives, still waiting for the right conditions, still saying one day. But one day has a way of becoming never without making any announcement about it. Peace doesn't wait in the future for perfect conditions to arrive. It has to be practiced right now. in the middle of imperfect conditions, or it never gets practiced at all. Some of my best moments these days are almost embarrassingly small. Sitting outside before the neighborhood wakes up, drinking tea without rushing it, walking around the block without my phone, watching light come through the window at a certain angle in the late afternoon. Younger versions of me would have called that boring. I would have been wrong. I just didn't know yet that peace is much quieter than people expect, and that most people put it off until their bodies are too worn down to enjoy it the way they could have. Don't wait. That's the whole thing. Whatever version of that quiet morning is available to you, take it now. The weeks move faster once you're past 60 than anyone warned you they would. The fifth one, and maybe the saddest, is spending your later years disconnected from yourself. And I mean something specific by that. A lot of older men especially, and I count myself here, grew up in a time when nobody taught you to sit still with yourself. You worked, you provided, you kept moving, you stayed strong. Sitting quietly with your own thoughts wasn't something you did. Decades went by without ever really stopping. And then retirement comes and the silence enters the room for the first time in years. And all the thoughts you buried start coming back to visit. Regrets, old grief, questions about whether you spent your years on the right things, questions you don't quite have words for yet. I went through a season like that after my wife passed. The house got very quiet. Television could cover some of it. Keeping busy helped some. But there was an emptiness underneath that none of that reached. And for the first time in a long time, I had to actually sit with my own mind. No distractions, no schedule, just me and whatever was in there. At first it was uncomfortable, more than uncomfortable. But little by little I realized something. Running from yourself gets harder as you get older. At some point your legs just won't carry you fast enough anymore, and strangely, and I mean this, that can end up being a gift. Because once you stop running, you start noticing things you'd missed for years. How much weight you'd been carrying that you didn't have to carry. How often your mind lived everywhere except the actual moment in front of you. How many small good things were happening that you were too busy, too worried, too defended to feel. Some evenings now I sit on the porch and just listen. Wind in the trees, nothing on, no phone in my pocket, no particular reason to be anywhere. Younger me would have found that pointless. Now I think it might be one of the better things life offers, to exist quietly without fighting the moment, a man at peace with where he is. That's a freedom people don't talk about enough. So those are the 5. Resentment, worry over what you can't control, needing to feel important, postponing peace, losing yourself in the noise. And I want to say one more thing before I go, because I think it matters. I don't look at any of these as moral failures anymore. I really don't. These are survival habits, patterns people carry for decades because life was hard and they were doing their best inside it. Most of us were never taught how to grow old well. We were taught how to work, how to endure, how to push through. Nobody sat us down and said, here's how to let go gracefully. Here's how to get lighter as you go instead of heavier. So if you heard yourself somewhere in what I said tonight, please don't punish yourself for it. Just notice it honestly. That's where things actually start to shift. The later years aren't really about becoming someone new. They're about setting down what no longer needs to be carried. The old arguments, the need to be right, the tension you've kept in your shoulders for 30 years out of pure habit. Once you start putting some of it down, life gets lighter in a way that's hard to describe until you feel it. You laugh a little easier, you sleep better. You're softer with people, even the ones who test you. Your face changes. I've seen it happen in men I know. Something releases, and you can see it. At this age, I don't think the point is to impress anyone. I think the point is to get peaceful enough that your presence is a comfort to people rather than another thing they have to manage. Some people walk into a room and add noise. Others walk in and the room settles. Older people have a real chance to become the second kind. Through honesty, through softness, through finally understanding what mattered and what never really did. One day the achievements fade, the titles go quiet, the arguments stop feeling worth it. And what you're left with is pretty simple. Did you love people well? Did you let yourself be alive while you were alive? Did you find any peace before the years ran out? Those questions feel more important to me at 74 than anything I spent the first 50 years chasing. So tonight, before you go to sleep, try sitting quietly for just a few minutes. No screen, no sound, no hurry. Just sit with yourself gently. Breathe slowly. Ask yourself whether the things stealing your peace are still worth carrying. Some of them might be, but I'd bet most of them aren't, and you already know which is which. You've probably known for a while.